The LA County Police say that they have it under control. Carrying a flag is not illegal, as you know. What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
Video after video has shown that these agents are the ones provoking protesters and also making up, aggression by these protesters that later video shows people were not aggressive.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
Unrest is isolated. LA is home to millions of people, most of whom are having a normal day here on Sunday.
You know, you've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. There was a protest that got a little unruly late at night.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. Nothing has happened.
What is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
Most of those demonstrations were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were...
Come on now. I think we all know the answer to that, don't we? I'm running a little bit late this morning. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Not really unusual for me to be running late, but I was having some minor technical issues this morning. Hopefully you guys were able to hear that video. I shouldn't say it's a technical issue. I should say that I don't remember how to adjust the settings after being gone for so long. And I'm like, man, I've got to get this figured out because Colonel Joe Adams is going to be joining us tomorrow. So hopefully you guys were able to hear that. You're able to hear me. I'm going to be working on that to make sure when Colonel Joe Adams joins us tomorrow that we've actually got him on and we can hear him. Good morning, Dottie. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Sherry. Good to see all of you this morning. So much as usual to talk about. Not a lot changes. Not a lot has changed overnight other than the increasing threat we all face. Good morning, Ruta. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping cool out there where you live. I'll tell you, there's some crazy stuff going on, isn't there? It just gets crazier by the day. So I played that clip, coming into the show about the media just flat out denying that anything is going on. And so when you see liberals doing the same thing, they're all completely in denial. It's not happening. There's nothing going on. It's all contained to a 2-block area, in downtown Los Angeles. And there's no bricks out on the streets. There's no violence. None of this is happening. Oh, it's the police flashbangs. That's what's setting the fires. They're all in complete denial, and it's intentional, and it hurts all of us. Their denial hurts all of us. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more later in the show. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Glesna. And, again, there's so much to talk about, even outside of just what's going on in Los Angeles. There's a lot more to talk about. First of all, there was violence that took place in Dallas and Austin. I know there were protests that took place in Tampa. I did not hear if there was any violence that took place in Tampa. I know that we have the No King's Day coming up on June 14th. We're going to get into that and what that means. We're going to be talking about who is sponsoring the violence and what is the violence really about? Is it about deportations? No. Is it about Donald Trump? Yes, because he stands in the way of socialism. He stands in the way of us becoming the next Muslim caliphate. So yes, there are certainly, some reasons for them to be angry with Donald Trump, but it's not about what they're telling you it's about. It's not about ICE. It's really not. ICE is just a wing of the government that they all hate. We're going to get into who those sponsors might be. And, it used to be George Soros. Remember, every time something happened, oh, it's Soros. It's Soros's fault. It has expanded so far beyond that, where now there's hundreds of people, hundreds of names sponsoring these types of events. It's not just George Soros anymore. People have watched him and they've realized what George Soros has done and how sponsoring this type of violence has furthered his agenda. And they're picking up where he leaves off. And we're going to get into that also. There's so much to talk about. But one of the things I wanted to and by the way, towards the end of the show, we're going to talk about why it might be better for you, why it might be better for your health to be single, and why maybe some of you who are married or in a very serious relationship, maybe you're not going to last as long as the rest of us single folks. So we're going to get into that too. But we'll save that for the end of the show. Kind of end things on maybe a little fun note. Serious, but fun. Some of the things I wanted to talk about also, back in the day, we all heard about, do you guys remember many of you, I don't know if you followed me back then, but I was on a show called The War on COVID. That is how I got started out on a show with Vic, Eric, and Chris, is that we started out on a show called War on COVID. And it was kind of interesting. We were syndicated across several states back then because, most stations were off the air because they weren't allowed to come into the studio because of COVID. Well, we did. And we were back on the Viper, out of St. Louis, Missouri, Lake St. Louis, Missouri. And one of the things that we talked about then was the swabs. Do you remember those long, those big long swabs they use to test for COVID back then? This was in 2020. We started that show, I think, towards the end of March or the 1st of April of 2020, right when, COVID was reaching its peak. Oh, Karen, you were there. Thank you, Karen, for being there with us. Sherry says, Christy Walton, as in Walmart sponsoring it. I hadn't heard her name, but that wouldn't surprise me. And so back on the War on COVID, we talked back then about those long Q-tips causing brain abscesses and, brain infections and so on, because there was something like a chemical, on or a contamination on those swabs. And whenever they do that COVID test, they put that thing, as you know, up your nose so far back that it's almost like up there, near your brain barrier. And it's transferring some type of chemical or microbial infection into that portion, and all it has to do is take hold to spread through that brain barrier, and the next thing you know, you have a brain abscess. We talked about it back then a lot, and now and of course back then they said, oh, that's crazy, that's not true, that's not happening. Then I wake up this morning and I see this giant headline that those swabs are being recalled. Because why? Because they're causing microbial infections, brain infections in people who are being tested for COVID. This is exactly why you cannot trust anything they tell you. You cannot trust it. You cannot believe it. They're lying to us. They've been lying to us from day one. Don't trust it. And it's kind of funny, but I had sinus surgery. So anytime they've tried to give me one of those tests, I always tell them, you cannot put that thing in my nose. It will not go anywhere. The top part of my sinuses are completely blocked from the sinus surgery, but they always have to try, and it's really painful. It's like they stick that thing in my nose, and of course it doesn't go anywhere. They're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I told you that. It's so frustrating to me how little control we have over our bodies. So little control that if you go to the doctor's office and they say, oh, we would like to test you for this. Let's stick this giant thing up your nose and make sure you don't have COVID. I don't know about you guys, but it's hard for me to be like, oh, no, you cannot do that. Because I always feel like if I'm in their office, I'm seeing this doctor and they want to test me for COVID or give me some other kind of test that I should be compliant. Oh, let's take your shoes and socks off and see if you have diabetes. We'll give you this diabetes test. And it's like, I wish I myself could stand up more and just say, no, I don't want to be tested. I'm not diabetic. I don't have diabetes. B, I don't have COVID. I don't want to be tested for COVID. But I think we all feel like we have to be compliant when we're at our doctor's office. Oh, do you want this flu shot? Oh, do you want this pneumonia shot? Just say no. It's so hard to do that because we always think that the doctors know best. But really, in the end, it's all about money. It's not about them knowing best or about them caring about your health. It's all about money. And trust me, I have been through the ringer with doctors over the years. And I know and it's to the point now where you really have to do your own research. You just have to do your own research. And then you go to your doctor's office and you explain to them what you think is wrong. And then hopefully they will believe you and do whatever they need to do to find out. Because if you go into your doctor and say, oh, I'm having this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, they're like, oh, well, let's give you these range of blood tests. Let's give you an x-ray, and then nothing comes out of it. It's insane. I have so little respect anymore for the health industry, for the medical industry. I just don't. Dottie, I refused blood transfusions for my recent surgery. Well, Dottie, I'm sorry. I didn't even know you had surgery. I hope that you're doing well. And yeah, that's the other thing is sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and say, no, I don't want this. This is not for me. And I should have done that. I think you guys know I had a couple biopsies recently. And I knew going into the biopsies, because I've read so much on this, that everything's fine, everything's encapsulated into that little area that they want to biopsy. Then the next thing you know, they go in there poking around. And if there was cancer or if there was, an infection, well, then they're going to open up, that little encapsulated area so that it can spread through the rest of your body. And instead of me saying no, I did the biopsy. And now every day I'm thinking, gosh, I had an abscess is what it turned out to be, in a lymph node and some other lung nodules, which I still don't know what's in there. But every day I'm thinking, is this spreading through my body? Who knows? You can't trust these folks. I'm sorry. And I know doctors who are great people. And I know doctors who try to do their best for their patients. I like the lung doctor I have. I like the, primary care doctor I have. I don't trust them. I don't trust anyone. And I think they've done that to us where we just don't trust anything. We don't trust anyone. I don't trust any government agency. I wish I had my little mug here. I don't have my little don't tread on me mug. I usually have that. You guys can't see it because it's back in the background. I did take down my don't tread on me flag because it was probably a little too radical for some people. Sherry says mammograms are just as bad. Sherry, I have heard that mammograms are just as bad, that if you have breast cancer and you go in and you get a mammogram, as you know, they will flatten that out just as close to a pancake as they can get. And sometimes from what I understand, it can again breach that little encapsulated area. And then of course the cancer spreads. So I'm not a doctor, don't listen to me, but that's what I read, that's what I hear, it's what I believe. Some other things to talk about today. We're going to talk about Yellowstone too, and some earthquakes that are taking place before we get to, the true heart of what I want to talk about today, which is, of course, the violence that is going to take place across our country. We see it in LA now, but it's going somewhere. I want to talk about what's going on with China. I would really like to know why is China trying to kill us? I don't understand it. Oh, another headline I saw. And by the way, I apologize if I look awful or if I'm a little off this morning. I worked really late last night. I came home, slept for a couple of hours, jumped up this morning, trying to get everything ready. And the last thing I do is get myself ready. So I probably look a little rough this morning, but that's okay. We're not here to look at me, right? One of the headlines I saw yesterday was about another Chinese citizen coming into the United States with vials of some unknown virus, unknown illness, who knows what all they actually have in this vials. And this is the third one. You guys are probably going to say, oh, we just heard about that last week. No, this is a third time. I think it's in 3 weeks, 3 times in 3 weeks, all in Michigan. What's going on in Michigan outside of the Muslim Brotherhood taking over our country? There's something going on in Michigan. And I believe all 3 cases involved the state of Michigan. So this was a woman. Her name was Shengwan Han. I'm probably not saying that right. And I don't even care. And she took a flight from Shanghai to Detroit. And of course, customs found that she had 4 images with her, and they were marked plastic cup. That's what they were titled as, plastic cup. Well, upon further inspection, they found that it was full of what they called roundworm material. And then it turns out that she lied and wouldn't give any information. Well, of course, they dug a little bit deeper. They took her cell phone, they uncovered texts that she had deleted, search history she had deleted. And I'm glad they take these steps to find out a little bit more instead of just dismissing it. And it turns out that she had vials of different types of things. One, they said, could potentially be some type of species of COVID. They found out she's tied to Wuhan University lab, which is insane and not surprising at all. And of course, the federal government saying this is a threat to our national security. Three times in 3 weeks, they have apprehended somebody coming over from China who is tied to a lab that has unknown biological material with them and not very well protected at that. What are they doing? Why are they bringing these samples in with them, these biological materials? We don't know. We don't know. And I don't understand why it's not being talked about more than it already is. And she was, by the way, was again, Shanghai to Detroit. They found out she was tied to the University of Michigan. No, and of course, she tried to hide her PhD work in the Wuhan lab. What are they trying to do to us? Are they bringing these samples into this country? I mean, honestly, I can't. I'm sitting here scanning my brain, trying to think of some reasonable explanation, but they're lying. They're bringing these samples in, trying to hide them. If it was something legit, why wouldn't they have a certain type of I don't know what the word for a certain type of permission to bring these biological materials from China into the United States? Why do they have to sneak them over? If they're sneaking them over, I think that tells us everything that we want to know. It's because they're not supposed to have them. Now, why is the University of Michigan involved? And I hope somebody's looking into that a little bit further. Why is a PhD scientist, a lab worker from the Wuhan lab, bringing these biological samples over to the University of Michigan? It makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that. And, so we're going to talk more about that as we learn more. I don't know everything there is to know quite yet about that, but we are going to find out. And we're going to be talking, of course, about the Muslim Brotherhood here shortly. Are they behind these pathogens coming into our country? It wouldn't surprise me because we know that they have taken over Detroit and some of the areas around Detroit. So who knows? Dearborn, Michigan in particular. We'll find out. We will find out. Something else I wanted to jump into was earthquakes. We haven't talked about Yellowstone in quite a while. And, I've talked about Yellowstone a lot over the years. And I'm not saying that we're heading into the big one, a big earthquake in Yellowstone, but there is definitely something going on with Yellowstone. There's absolutely something going on. We're to this point where we can't ignore it. I'm not saying, again, I don't want to cause fear or spread fear or anyone to think that I think the big earthquake is getting ready to take place, because I think we all know what that would do to us and to our country. I don't think that, but I do think we're heading towards something. What that is, I don't know. Maybe a mid-sized earthquake. But I wanted to read this to you. This was a lab report I came across. And I keep up pretty well with the earthquake history, where different things are happening. And I kind of picked up that interest because my son's father, Darren, as some of you know that story because he'd passed away from COVID. And my son, lived with him for a little while as an adult. And I would worry about it constantly. But my son's father, Darren, he's from Charleston, Missouri. And after we were no longer together, he moved back to Charleston, Missouri. And his house was literally on top of the fault line, which is really crazy. And so I worried about it nonstop. Every time my son would go, out to visit him, I thought, oh, they're going to have a big earthquake while my son's there. Probably not. But most of you have heard the reports out of Charleston, Missouri, and that entire Birds Point area. His house was literally right there on top of like that Birds Point area. So it worried me nonstop. And I've paid a lot of attention to earthquakes over the years. Yes, and I am rambling on about earthquakes. So here's the report that I read. It says over 100 earthquakes in 2 weeks. That's crazy. It says magnitude 4.3 hit near Clayton, and there's a swarm they claim is moving east towards Yellowstone. And it goes on talking about tremors are closing in on the Montana border that puts them in the direct path towards the Yellowstone region. They said the activity is spreading. The direction is becoming more clear. I could go on and on about this report. There was a lot of information in there, but it is kind of interesting to me every time I see this because, about a month ago, I heard another one of those reports, and this is not uncommon. This has happened a few different times. That's why I'm not overly concerned, but kind of worth mentioning is you hear those reports once in a while where they say, oh, all the animal, the bison, everybody's leaving, the buffalo, they're all leaving Yellowstone, the Yellowstone Park, and they're all heading out because they know something's coming. And it's kind of funny, but I don't know if I should tell this story or not, but I was talking to Bill DeWitt, one of the owners, of course, of the Cardinals, the son, Bill. And we were, it's a long story, but we were talking about this and I was explaining to him, I'm like, yeah, I heard about the buffalo and all the animals leaving Yellowstone. I seriously thought he would look at me like I was insane. And then he was talking about how the last time Yellowstone erupted, it killed all the dinosaurs. And I thought I was kind of surprised he said that. And I've thought about it a lot since then. I'm glad he didn't look at me like I was absolutely nuts, like you guys are probably all looking at me right now. But Jay says Yellowstone has thousands of microquakes. I agree, Jay. It is not at all unusual to see these little earthquakes around Yellowstone, but I've seen countless reports from some pretty well-known, seismologists who are saying there is something going on at Yellowstone that they haven't seen before. And they said, again, there's a clear direction, a path towards Yellowstone. I'm not saying it's the big one. I know last week they had scientists out at the Yellowstone Park, and they were kind of looking into some volcanic activity, some hot spots, and some of the water that was heating up excessively a little bit more than it normally does. So, it again, not too long ago here in Missouri, we talk about the fault line here in Missouri, the New Madrid fault. I mean, they've had researchers here, what is it, for over a year now, working out when are we going to have the big one, here in the New Madrid fault? Probably not in our lifetimes, nothing we need to worry about. I'm not even slightly worried about the big one happening in Yellowstone, but I always think it's interesting when we hear those stories. And let's see, Lori, speaking of earthquakes, I was in the Grand Caymans last week. Our guide said there has been an unusual amount of quakes there in the last 6 months. Lori, I heard that too about the Grand Caymans. Look at what's happening in Greece right now. They've had to evacuate, an island in Greece. I'm not sure if you guys saw that video. That was from, gosh, I don't know, probably 2 months ago. And they continue to see large earthquakes in that area. And so who knows, probably nothing going on, but thought I would throw that out there. Next week, if the big one hits, don't say I didn't warn you. Not that I expect that to happen, but hey, you never know. Lots to talk about again today. I wanted to throw those little tidbits in there, lots of news headlines. And at the end of the show, I want to talk about why it's healthier being single than being married. I'm sure some of you will probably agree with me for a lot of different reasons, but lots to talk about. I want to talk about, we started out the show talking about the media, the role the media plays in what's taking place in Los Angeles. And I'm going to play just a little bit of that clip because a lot of you weren't here then. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but this will give you a good idea of what the media is saying. And then we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about who's funding, how the Muslim Brotherhood is involved, how the Communist Party is involved with what's taking place, not only in Los Angeles. This were just about Los Angeles, I probably wouldn't even be talking about it. But this is about what's getting ready to take place all across the country, probably in a town near you. So take a look at this quick video here.
The LA County police say that they have it under control. Carrying a flag is not illegal, as you know. What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
Video after video has shown that these agents are the ones provoking protesters and also making up, aggression by these protesters that later video shows people were not aggressive.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
Unrest is isolated. LA is home to millions of people, most of whom are having a normal day here on Sunday.
You know, you've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. There was a protest that got a little unruly late at night.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit any.
Okay, so I think we all know better, don't we? Good morning, Ruth. Good to see you this morning. I think we know better, don't we? Looting. What does looting have to do with standing up against ICE and deportation? I saw numerous stores being looted yesterday, throughout last night, and it was really sad to see for these businesses. Remember when we had that occupation in Seattle and they called it Chad? Wasn't that in Seattle? I think it was. And they called it Chad. And I'm sure that they were trying to make sure that something like that does not happen here. And, you know, if you watch all these videos, you don't see the National Guard. You're not seeing, active duty Marines out harming people. And all I hear from these ridiculous super liberals is, oh my God, Donald Trump is bringing in the Marines. He's bringing in the military to shoot innocent citizens. He's bringing in the National Guard to harm innocent citizens. No, but you know who did threaten us against harming innocent civilians? Remember Joe Biden? I'm sure you guys all remember that speech Joe Biden gave. I have a little bit of a clip here talking about how if you're going to stand up against government tyranny, that you better have an F-15. I think we all remember that, don't we? Let's see here. I think we'll listen to that right now.
And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the
Of course he's not joking. He went on to threaten Americans with Hellfire missiles. Do you remember that? If you're going to stand up against the United States government, against tyranny, you better have an F-15. You better have some Hellfire missiles. But that's okay, isn't it? That's okay. And Jay says there isn't a single person who could honestly believe this is peaceful. You know, Jay, there are. It's as crazy to me as it is to you to think that there are people out there who thinks it's peaceful. I kind of laugh. There's a social media site called Threads. I'm not sure if any of you have ever been on there, but I'm not much of a troller. But when it comes to Threads, it's so full of crazy super liberals. And by super liberal, I'm not saying these people you might know, maybe family members or friends who consider themselves liberal. I'm talking about people who have lost their freaking minds. They're all over on Threads, and I love posting stuff. I call it fishing, liberal fishing. These people are crazy. Boy, were they out after me. I think I had like 4,500 comments last night on something that I posted, and I get such pleasure from it. It's so funny seeing some of these things these people say. But the problem is while I might laugh about it, it's actually very serious. And that's the role the media plays. These people were like, I'm in Los Angeles. There's nothing going on here. There's no riots. There's nobody burning anything. That's from flashbangs from the police. There's no one doing anything. There's no looting going on. Wake up, people. You know why? It's because people, if they don't see it with their own eyes, they think it's not happening. And the only thing they're watching is this super liberal media that tells them there's nothing going on. They're just validating what these people already think. And then what happens? It increases tension and it increases violence because these people think that we're lying, that they literally think we're lying when we say these things are taking place, and they don't believe it even when they see it. They just don't believe it. Dottie, only over on Threads. I try to be careful everywhere else. Bill says this must be squashed. You know what, Bill? We're getting there, and we don't have much time to do it because it's about to get a whole lot worse. And Lori says one of the most disgusting parts of protest, besides any harm to police officers is to accuse breaking into the excuse of breaking into businesses and stealing merchandise. I agree, Lori, and I don't understand why that's happening. I watched them breaking into that original, they called it the original Jordan store. I saw them breaking into a sushi restaurant, stealing the cash register. Now, granted, there were people there who were saying, don't do that. That's not what this is about. Don't go in there and loot. But they did it anyway. I saw a video of a guy come out with a cash register, drop it on the ground several times, take the money and run. This protest is about a lot of things, but what it's not about is deportations. There might be a couple of people there, within the crowd who actually care about deportations, but that's not what this is about. This is a paid protest. This is paid violence. And there are so many different groups that are responsible. And Jay says it's been mostly Hispanic owned business. Yes, Jay, thank you for saying that. Mostly Hispanic owned businesses are getting looted. I don't know what it was, like a quick shop type of place, convenience store. And I don't believe it was a gas station, but I could be wrong. But I saw the Hispanic business owner standing there like, oh my God, these people were ripping through his store, taking everything, absolutely everything. You guys may have seen the video also. This is not about deportation. It's not about ICE. It's not about the Hispanic people. It's about a lot of things, but it's not about that. It is about weakening our country. It's about creating chaos. It's about dividing us. And we've played this game before, haven't we? We saw it during the George Floyd riots, back during the Michael Brown riots. There is nothing new going on right now. The only thing new is that we have the Muslim Brotherhood now also has joined the party. A lot of other folks have joined the party, and that ups the ante. It makes things a little bit more dangerous because, we know in this country there are sleeper cells. We know in this country there are dirty bombs. We know this. We have reports from our government that have said that somebody has entered our country with one of these nuclear backpacks. We don't know where it is, but it's here. We don't know where it is. They're just waiting for the right time. Are they going to set that off one of these protests? They don't need to. They don't need to, because what they're doing is effective enough. They want to cause panic. They want to cause fear, and they want you to come out. They're having all of these, what do they call it? The No King's Day on June the 14th. I've got a little photo of that here. My pictures don't always come up as well as I would like. Hopefully this will pop up. This is No King's Day. Is it going to pop up? I don't know why that happens. Like, I can see it perfectly on my end, but for some reason, I was just trying to get my photo to come up. We'll play that later. Well, darn it. I don't know why. I use Restream. It is really bad when it comes to photos. So I will just have to read to you about No King's Day as how we'll do it. And, this is crazy. No King's Day. This is June 14th, and it says mobilize. It says, we are a people of principle and honor. We honor our commitments and stand by our allies. We defend against aggression by dictators. We uphold and defend the Constitution. We care for veterans and children. Do they really know? We respect our neighbors and trading partners. We support a healthy national and international economy, community, and environment. We are the world leader trusted to uphold the stability of rule of law. That's who these people think they are, and that's who they're telling you they are, because they want you to accept what they're doing. But that's the furthest from who these people truly are. Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Annette. And, that's the furthest from who these people truly are. Who these people are, they're people who want to provoke violence and chaos. And we see it in the streets. I'm going to show a couple videos here. I hope I can get these videos to play because it's not the best. But these people, they hate us. They hate our law enforcement.
Police that are around us are not our friends. You should not speak to them. They are our enemy. When I see an NYPD cop car burn, I say we're waking up revolutionary council. They gotta abolish the United States government.
They need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
They hate our police. It's certainly a war on police. It's a new type of war on police. You know, we all remember under Obama what a dangerous time it was to be a law enforcement officer. Think about that now, you know, quadrupled times 10. It is a very dangerous time right now for law enforcement. It's a very dangerous time for Americans in general. And the best way to deal with a situation like this, no King's Day, is just don't go near it. Don't participate. Don't go out and look around. You know, that's what they want you to do. They want to see counter protests. Don't do it. Somebody sent me a memo last night that they're going to have one of these no King's Day protests at Keener Plaza here in the St. Louis area on the 14th. And people are like, oh, I want to go up and I'm going to, don't partake. It's a trap. It's a setup. Don't do it. You know, the last thing I want to see happen is anyone go out to one of these protests that has a lot of propensity to become violent and end up becoming a victim. They want you to come up. They want you to counter protest. They want to divide us. They want to make us weak. And there's so much evidence I'm seeing coming in every single day of these different organizations. You know, it was kind of funny because last night I was searching about the Muslim Brotherhood and looking at their involvement. It was kind of interesting. I came across a post by Laura Loomer, which I was absolutely not expecting to see this post by her. And she actually made several posts, and I'm going to go through and look at these. Here's one of the posts she made on X last night. She said the Muslim Brotherhood jihadis are organizing violent protests in Los Angeles to attack ICE agents and support illegal aliens. It's time to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization and make it illegal to protest while wearing a keffiyeh. If I say that right, keffiyeh. And the Muslim Brotherhood is funding these Palestinian jihadists who are waving Palestinian flags and encouraging people to throw Molotov cocktails at ICE agents who are trying to detain and deport illegal aliens. That's from Laura Loomer. She made a couple of different posts about the same thing. And I'm going to find the other one here. But I was kind of surprised because I didn't really expect other people necessarily to agree with me with the Muslim Brotherhood involvement. I see it. I watch the videos. I have watched probably 100 videos of what's taking place in and around Los Angeles. And I see it. You can see it too once you know what to look for. And I'm going to show you a couple of those videos also. Again, from Laura Loomer. The Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic terrorist organizations that receive 501c3 tax-exempt status are holding training sessions this week across the country to help illegals and Muslims learn how to detect ICE and hide from ICE. They're as involved as it can possibly be. And this came from Senator Ted Cruz. You know, trust me, this is on hyperdrive right now because people know what the Muslim Brotherhood is up to. And I'm glad that people are finally speaking out. This is Senator Ted Cruz. In the coming days, I will be circulating and reintroducing a modernized version of the Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Designation Act, which I have been pushing for in my entire Senate career. As I told the Free Beacon, the Muslim Brotherhood used the Biden administration to consolidate and deepen their influence, but the Trump administration and Republican Congress can no longer afford to avoid the threat they pose to Americans and to national security. Now, this is a list of countries who have already designated the Muslim Brotherhood as a terror organization. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Libya, Russia, Austria, Syria, Jordan, of course, the old Syria, Tajikistan, which I'm probably not saying right, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, lots of different countries. And these people are behind so much of the violence that we see right now. They are behind the pro-Palestinian mini riots that we're seeing at some of our college campuses and some of the violence that takes place. And there was a video, I'm not going to show it to you today because it's subtitled and I don't want you to have to, it's a kind of a long video where you see different governments. It's a compilation of different Muslim-based governments talking about what they would like to do to the United States, how they would like to infiltrate, and how they infiltrate is supporting these anti-Israel students, these pro-Palestinian students to go out and protest, to wave their flag, to cause violence and so on. And then they're going to bring these people back to their country because a lot of them are not from here in the United States. They're actually from these different foreign countries. They're going to bring them back and give them awards, medals, scholarships, anything they want. And a lot of them, these countries said they are paying the tuition for these kids to come here into the United States and wreak havoc. And don't think it's not happening as part of this Los Angeles situation. Now, there's a lot of people funding these violent protests. The Muslim Brotherhood is just one piece of the puzzle. And Lori says, but who are they going to call when they have a break-in? Exactly. Linda, June 14th is Flag Day and President Trump's birthday. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that President Trump, of course, has a huge, parade planned for June 14th in Washington, D.C. He already allegedly had all of this military equipment that was going to be there as part of this parade. He was going to have our, military services come through as part of the parade. And I've heard that he's redirecting all of those troops to Los Angeles. And then I heard that he redirected some, but he's putting some of that on hold because these protests are about to spread out all across the country. And let's see, June 14th, Flag Day. I will be at our VFW and have an honorable burning of our tattered flag. Totally off topic. Did you see Bret Baier rap? I did see Bret Baier do his rap, and it was not what I was expecting, and he did a good job. And Jay says, all of this is because the last 4 years, there weren't any consequences. Oh, yeah. I mean, not even you could get arrested and just released. There's no bail. So, why not? So I want to show some interesting things to you right here, and you'll be able to see partly what I'm talking about when it comes to these Islamic jihadists being part of these Los Angeles riots. You can see them right here. That's one example of many that I have. And this guy, I think this guy has it right. Take a look.
Wherever you're at, we all have a common enemy. It is the same one. Everywhere you go, when you go down the street, there's the enemy. There's the enemy that works for the other enemy, who they all work under. So we all share the same common enemy. Everybody has the same enemy. From LA to Africa to Palestine to Vietnam. We all have the same enemy. That's one enemy. And it is not me. And it is not you. And it is not them. We are not the enemies of each other. They are the enemy. There is only one enemy. And we all have to work together in unison to fight this one enemy. That's right. Capitalism, the faster we learn that, the more we can grow as a people, and the quicker we can get to this revolution and overturn this motherfucker and have real people leading this country. That's right. That's right.
It's not about deportations, is it? It's not about deportations. It's not about Mexico. It's not about ICE. It's not about any of those things. He was pointing down to ICE because ICE is part of our government. It's part of Donald Trump's brigade, right? Donald Trump, of course, we all know he put a big halt to their 30-year plan. There is no 30-year plan anymore. We've completely destroyed anything that they even thought they could do. And now this is their coup. This is how they stop Donald Trump. They're going to do every single thing they can to bait him into making a wrong move so that they can file impeachment papers. Why? And you might ask, well, why would they want to do that? Of course, I know you know the answer to that. Because they want to continue on with that 30-year plan. They want to bring socialism into our country. And then you might ask, well, why would the Muslim Brotherhood support communism or socialism? Why? Because they know it makes us weak. They know it makes us weak. Their goal is to create weakness and chaos. Because when we're at our lowest, they can step in and they can take over. And of course, that's the ultimate goal. And I'm not talking about, I know Muslim people who don't even care. They could care less about politics. They're not trying to take over anything. They're just trying to live their lives like we are. But there are a lot of folks out there, and they are growing. If you haven't noticed, and I can't wait to talk to Colonel Joe Adams tomorrow about some of this. It is growing. We showed you that big complex called, what was it called? Icon, I think, in Josephine, Texas, where it was, 130-acre complex built around a mosque, where they were going to build an Islamic community. And I'm sorry, and I don't want to offend anyone who's Muslim or who has Muslim friends and family, because this is about radicalization. And whether we like it or not, the radicalization is here. It is here. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it at this point. And but people have, in Jay Sender's Newsflash, ICE has been around for 30 years. Yes, they have. And you know what's interesting? You say that, Jay. I didn't have the video to play today, but I do have a video. I'll probably share it on social media later about President Obama talking about talking about exactly that, about deportations. What did he do? He deported more illegals than any other president at that time. I think Trump has him beat by now, but at that time, he deported an awful lot of folks, no question about it. So keep your eyes open. No King's Day. June 14th, I read this list of cities yesterday. It's going to be everywhere. And these are very dangerous people who are running these organizations. Very dangerous people. Yesterday, we talked about Chirla, CHIRLA, is one of the organizations who's funding all of these violent protests. And some of you probably saw the videos where yesterday, remember, they arrived. These cars and vans pulled up, and they just started tossing these things out to the people. Masks. They were sending out masks. They were handing out goggles. They were handing out umbrellas. Now they use umbrellas because those, when you probably have seen those protests before, where they'll all stand around a group of police officers and they'll have their big black umbrellas extended. That is so that it blocks the tear gas, is primarily the reason for those umbrellas. So they're escalating. That's what's happening. They're escalating. But who is it that's paying for all of these things to come out? And I'm sure you guys all saw the ad. I don't know if this is a real ad or not. I just don't know. And I think sometimes they put this stuff out there just to mess with us, to get us all worked up. But I'm sure you guys saw this ad. It says, looking for the toughest badasses in the city of Los Angeles. And it says, seeking extremely tough, brave men for new crew I'm building. Compensation, $6,500 to $12,500 per week. We are forming a select team of the toughest dudes in the area. This unit will be activated only when the situation demands it, but you get paid every week no matter what. High pressure, high risk, no room for hesitation. We need individuals who do not break, panic, or fold under stress and are basically all around kick-ass dudes. Physical strength, speed, conditioning is important, but mental toughness is everything. If you're not the biggest guy in the room, but you're the one people follow when things go bad, that's who we're looking for. I mean, good morning, Kim. Seriously, I don't know if this is a real ad or not. Probably not. But we do know that these people are being paid. But here's the crazy part. I don't think they have to put out an ad to get these people to go out to these riots. These people don't have jobs. Their job, literally, their career is causing chaos and committing violence, mostly against our law enforcement, oftentimes innocent civilians. If you guys remember, during the George Floyd protests, there were 50 people that were killed. We don't really hear a lot about that, but there were 50 innocent people killed throughout those protests, billions of dollars in businesses burned and destroyed, countless vehicles set on fire. And are we going to see that, on June 14th, on No King's Day, as these violent protests spread out, across the country? And then we hear people like why do I keep calling him Governor Newsom? I laugh every time I say that. Governor Gavin Newsom. I did the same thing yesterday. And of course, Karen Bass, Police Chief McDonald, they're all carrying on about Donald Trump. Why would Donald Trump bring in the National Guard? Why is he bringing in the Marines and blah, blah, blah? Oh, this is unprecedented. No, it happened in 1992. It's not unprecedented. It has happened before. And I've not really seen, again, the large presence of the National Guard or the Marines. I've seen the helicopters flying around. I've seen them staged, protecting federal buildings, which is what they're brought there for. And guess what? ICE continues to detain. ICE continues to make arrests. They're continuing to do their job. These protests are not affecting them at all. They're continuing on to do what their duty has been lined out before them. So it's ridiculous. It's just all absolutely ridiculous. And yes, Donald Trump has every right to bring in the National Guard. He has every right to bring in active duty military. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Good morning, Colonel Joe Adams. Good to see you this morning. But again, who's funding? Who is behind it? I'm going to give you some names here. for you to research and you to look up before I head out for today. The official Communist Party USA. This is from Representative Anna Paulina Luna. Official Communist Party USA, in affiliation with the Democrat Party and the CCP, are publicly pledging to expand the Los Angeles insurrection nationwide in the hopes that the federal response can be used to trigger an all-out civil war. They would love to see an all-out civil war, wouldn't they? Which is exactly why I'm telling you, stand back, don't go. Do not show yourself at one of these protests, no matter how much you love your country and oppose the violence. Do not do it. Leave it to the professionals. And so Anna Paulina Luna goes on to talk about the civil unrest bought and paid for with U.S. taxpayer money. Why? Why would she say that? Because there are over 250 NGOs who have joined together. And there's a whole list of names of people who have joined together to fund these protests. So when you see those vans and those vehicles pull up and they're tossing masks and goggles and umbrellas and other equipment to these violent protesters, just know who's behind it. Just know. And the Communist Party, who runs the Communist Party? Now, these are the two of the prime people here that are working with the Communist Party. And let's see here. I just had their names and I lost my spots. One is Leah Greenwood, or Green, sorry. Let me find it. I am not having my best day today finding this. I just had, well, I have it written down. How about that? And Leah Greenberg, Ezra Levin. They run a company called Indivisible. I have seriously 262 names of people who've been named as sponsoring these riots in Los Angeles and what's about to take place on No King's Day. So these are two of the bigger names I heard. Leah Greenberg, Ezra Levin, co-founders of Indivisible. Another group like Public Allies, another group like AmeriCorps, where they're funded by the government. These people are communists. They have no problem telling you that they're communists. They put, if you're ever at one of these protests, you'll see all of these flyers that say resist. You know, they'll give phone numbers to call. That's these people. And it says indivisible.com down at the bottom of the flyers. I've seen countless posts of them. They were handing out these, I heard the other day, these same people, a flyer. And what they're doing is they're going out ahead of the potential protests and they're spreading these flyers everywhere. You'll see hundreds of them just laying on the ground. And then when the protesters arrive, they're already there. You know, and of course, police, they don't have time to mess with cleaning up these flyers. But the flyer said, it has their little logo at the bottom. It says, "Don't get caught." And it goes on to say, nearly every second of every day, you are carrying around a wiretap that can send everything to it says it hears, sees, or accesses to law enforcement. This applies to phones, personal computers, home assistants like Alexa, any car with anything that connects to the internet, satellites, and dozens of other devices. Don't bring it. And it goes on to tell you the things that data can collect, what not to bring. It says what not to do in a riot. It says turn your phone off, hide your identity, prepare for tear gas. And it goes on to tell people what they shouldn't do in place of a riot. Now, this is for the rioters, not for the innocent bystanders. They're telling people, make sure your phone is off so that they cannot trace you, so they don't know your locations. They want you to wear a mask, hide your identity. They go on to tell people, prepare for tear gas, and that's where the black umbrellas come in. And there's some other folks here, 250, like I said, 260 something names that I have seen. This is the coalition of Democrat NGOs. And let's see here. Here's a couple other names for you. There's not a lot of names on here I really recognize. One of the names is the former BlackRock managing partner, Morris Pearl, president of the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten. Speaking of the school board, this is what the school board feels about what's taking place in Los Angeles.
We the people! We the people! We the people! Yeah! All of us have that right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice!
And you know, and we're paying for this. You know, we're paying this woman's salary to go out and make these types of hateful speeches. We're paying money under the Biden administration to these NGOs who now turn around. You know what? They're upset because the Department of Doge cut their funding. So they have come together to create violence and chaos and anarchy across our country. And, I'm going to try to figure out a way to put all of these names somewhere out there on social media. There's a lot of folks implicated. A lot of names I don't know. A lot of people are involved in the tech industry, some of them in organizations like the school board. Some of them come from China. A lot of folks named from China. A lot of people in the Muslim Brotherhood, a lot of people in the Communist Party. But there's about 262 people. We all want to say, who's funding it? A lot of folks. We have a lot of enemies to face these days. Lots of enemies. Glessa says, dear rioters, the Marines are mostly peaceful too. That's great, Glessa. Good morning, Scott. And good morning, Matt. Good to see you. And we're going to be talking to Colonel Joe Adams tomorrow. Can't wait to talk to him, get his thoughts on everything that's going on. I just saw a news flash that came through when I was looking and reading about these NGOs. Trump has deployed another 2,000 National Guard troops to deal with not only what's taking place in Los Angeles, which is growing, by the way. The media doesn't want to tell you that, but these protests are growing. The violence is increasing, and it's going to happen all across the United States on June 14th. And not just on June 14th. It's going to happen between now and June 14th. I know last night I saw in part of Los Angeles where the police, I loved what they did. And I put the video on Facebook, but they surrounded a small group of rioters, and we should just call them terrorists because that's really what they are. They surrounded a small group of violent terrorists and enclosed in on them. They arrested every single one of them. I think there was around 36, I heard, in that small group. But if they could isolate these people, small groups at a time, which is what they were working on yesterday, I thought that was a great plan. And maybe Colonel Joe Adams can talk to us a little bit about that tactic where they were trying to separate and isolate these individual groups and just arresting them all. They brought in buses last night. I think we're going to see more of this tactic. It kind of reminds me of cattlemen, taking the cattle out through Fort Worth, and they're separating them and sectioning them off and sending these off to the stockade. It was very similar to that, which is kind of a funny analogy. And but that's about it. Oh, wait a minute. I was going to say that's it. I got one more thing to talk about, and we might talk to Colonel Joe Adams about this tomorrow too, because it's pretty funny. So I was reading Colonel Adams, and I'm obviously joking. I love Colonel Adams' wife, Deanna. She is absolutely fantastic. But this is kind of funny. I was reading this story, kind of end on a funny note. It was a study about marriage and the absence of marriage and the health implications on your body and your sanity, which I think is pretty funny. And it said here in this study, it says the absence of marriage reduces your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease by 50%. Isn't that crazy? 50%. It says singles experience significantly less stress, sleep better, have stronger mental health, according to specialists, of course, and their involvement with a partner and sharing experiences. Not only does it harm the brain, but it leads to heart disease and even cancer. Who would have known that your marriage could cause cancer and heart disease? Now, I'm kidding, of course, with Colonel Joe Adams. I absolutely love him and Deanna. But I am sure some of you married folks out there can relate. You're probably thinking, yeah, that's absolutely true. I am definitely more prone to heart disease and mental instability for sure. I'm single, so I can laugh about it and make jokes about it. I guess I'll live a little bit longer than some of you folks. And Linda says AmeriCorps funds my senior companions program and also foster grandparents. Our year ends June 30th, and we still don't know. Yeah, AmeriCorps is one of those groups. It's funded and owned by the Clintons, and it has also been used to contribute to some of the violence that takes place across this country. If we pay for it, your tax dollars are paying for everything that's going on, not only in Los Angeles, but all across the country. Just keep that in mind. Your tax dollars have paid for it. Maybe not under Donald Trump, but under Joe Biden and under Obama, under the Clintons and everyone else, because they all have their little hands in a stake in that money. But either way, it is time for me to get to work. I must run. Hopefully tomorrow I won't be quite as tired. I don't have to work really late tonight. I'll get a little bit more sleep, and hopefully put on a little bit better of a show tomorrow. But I do hope you guys have a really good day. I look forward to talking to you then. We're going to talk about some gardening tomorrow. I said it yesterday, didn't have time, but we are going to get to it, even if it's for like 5 minutes, because I have got some questions for you guys. So we're going to cover that. But I do hope you guys have a really good day. I'm Tabitha with Tabs on Tap, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow.